Hello, we continue our series Verge3D for Maya Basics. In this part of the tutorial, we'll be creating a user interface for our application. Since this is a web application intended for running in browsers, it turns out to be quite efficient to use the standard web page markup techniques such as HTML and CSS. What we are going to do now is to create a new web page with user interface in which our 3D app will be incorporated. It is possible to create such a web page by typing markup code in a text editor, or build it in a visual manner with some designer tool. In this tutorial, we'll be using the tool called Webflow, which allows a 3D artist to build advanced user interfaces without any coding. To complete this tutorial, you'll need an account Webflow plan, either Lite or Pro. You can find the link to Webflow plans under this video. So let's begin creating HTML-based UI. In the dashboard, click New Project, select the blank site template, and type some name for your project. So here we have our blank project. We'll give you some overview of what tools are available to us. The empty white area is basically our web page that we'll be building shortly. On the right, you can see the panel for editing the styles and properties of HTML elements. The first tab of this panel is for styles that we can create, edit, or assign to HTML elements. The next tab of this panel is for editing attributes of HTML elements, such as IDs and others. Then goes the Style Manager, which will display all styles available for your project. And finally, there are tools for creating animation and other effects. On the left, there is another panel with more tools. The first button adds new elements to the page. It contains various pre-built elements that you can use on your page. Then goes the outliner that displays the layered structure of all elements that constitute the HTML page. Then there is a tool for creating new pages. Below is a tool for adding assets, such as images or sounds, to the page. And finally, we have a Settings tab. The first thing we are gonna do is to incorporate the 3D application to this page. To do this, add a component called Embed. It suggests to provide some code for embedding, similar to embedding YouTube videos. We can grab a ready-to-use piece of code from the user manual, namely from the chapter called HTML-based user interfaces. You can find the link to this chapter below this video. It can be found somewhere below. Here it is. Let's just copy this line and paste it right here. The only thing we should change is to provide the right link instead of my awesome app HTML. And for now, we'll be using the following trick. Let's publish our app on Verge3D network to obtain the temporary link. This can be done from the App Manager by clicking on the Upload button. Wait a bit until it is uploaded. Now let's copy the link and paste it to the embed window in Webflow. Click Save and Close. As a result, our application that we temporarily uploaded to Verge3D network is now embedded in this page. Let's fix the dimensions of this area. This can be done on the styling panel in Webflow. First of all, let's set the position to absolute. Let's make the width 100%. Same with the height, 100%. Now the 3D area occupies the entire page. Also make it stick to the top left corner to get rid of any spacing. So we are ready to add some buttons. Go to the Add menu and locate the component called Div Block. There is actually a button component nearby, but it offers too many settings that we don't need. So let's just use the Div Block. It is added to the page as a long transparent strip stuck to the top. Now we can style it to turn into a button. In the selector field, type the name for the new style. Let's name it simply button. So we created a new style and can now edit its properties. Let's set the dimensions, 60 by 60 pixels. Switch position to absolute. Also, let's temporarily paint it with some color for better visibility. For now, we have only one button. We need 6 of them in total. So let's just copy and paste this button several times. As a result, we now have 6 identical buttons. Since they share the same style, they all look the same and also occupy the same position on the page. So if we try to edit this style, for example the vertical position, the changes will apply to all buttons in bulk. To edit individual buttons, we'll need to add a unique style to each of them on top of a shared style. But before doing this, let's group our buttons so that 3 of them are positioned on the left and the rest are positioned on the right. To do this, add a new div block. If it was added inside one of the buttons, you can fix the hierarchy in the outliner. Let's create a style for this element, name it left panel. Make it 60 pixels wide. Leave the height as is for now. Switch its position to absolute. And snap it to the top left corner. Now in the outliner, let's move 3 of the buttons to this panel. Let's add another div for the right panel. Also make its position absolute and snap it to the top right corner. Let's move the rest 3 buttons to this right panel. It is now invisible since it is moved over the screen, but we can fix it by adding some spacing to the right. Make it 60 pixels. Alternatively, we can set its width to 60 pixels. So now the buttons of the right panel are visible. Let's begin shaping our UI buttons. Select the first button, which will trigger the animation for unfolding the knife. Let's create its individual style on top of a shared style. Name it Unfold Button with a hyphen. Now let's edit this style. In the background settings, we'll use an image instead of color. Let's select the corresponding icon, which is saved in SVG format. You can find all the icons in the starter files by the link below this video. Switch size to contain so that the icon is contained inside this div. Make it centered and disable tiling. The button is currently not visible since it is overlapped by the other buttons, but we'll fix it shortly. Let's proceed with the second button. We will create a new unique style for it by typing its name, Fold Button. Also upload an icon for it. Make it contained, centered, and not tiled. The only thing different is that we move it by adjusting the top spacing value. Now it is no longer overlapped and is visible to us. The button's height is 60 pixels, so we moved it by 70 pixels, thus making some space between the buttons. Let's set up the last button in this panel. It will be responsible for hiding and showing the annotations. Let's name its style accordingly, Annotation Button. Let's add an icon for it. Make all the settings the same as the first two buttons. This time we'll move this button by 140 pixels. Now all three buttons are visible. We no longer need the red background, so let's remove it. To do this, first select the original style called button by clicking the link Inheriting to Selectors. Here we can click on the color field and select Reset. We will remove the red background from the style, which is shared between all 6 buttons. Then we can get back to the second level style by clicking the Inheriting link again. We are done with the left panel, now let's do the same procedure for the right panel. The first button will assign the wood material to the knife body. So let's name it Wood Button. Just like we did it with the left panel buttons, let's upload the icon. All other settings are the same. Select the second button. Its style will be called Plastic Button. Upload the icon. And move it by 70 pixels. The last UI element will be Carbon Button. The spacing for it should be set to 140 pixels. That's it. Okay, we are almost finished with the buttons. Let's just center both panels vertically. As we want to preserve the centering at any screen resolution, we'll be using the following trick. Let's add another div block and name it Left Panel Center. Make it 60 pixels wide and switch the position to absolute. However, the height should be set to 50%. This will make its bottom edge to be exactly in the middle of the screen, no matter the screen resolution. Now let's place the left panel inside this new element and snap the left panel to the bottom. As a result, the top edge of the left panel will always sit in the middle. Now, in order to make centered the entire left panel rather than its top edge, set its height to 200 pixels, that is, the sum of heights of 3 buttons and spaces between them. Finally, let's set the bottom spacing to -100 pixels, that is, exactly the half of its whole height. As a result, the left panel is now centered in the middle of the screen. Let's do the same procedure for the right panel as well. Create new div and name it style Right Panel Center. Just like we used to do, set the position to absolute. The height should be set to 50% and width to 60 pixels. And it should be snapped to top right, while the left panel should have its snapping set to top left. Move the right panel inside the new div and snap it to bottom. Set its height to 200 pixels just like it was for the left panel. Also make bottom spacing -100 pixels. Now both panels are centered vertically. Let's click the preview button and check out the UI that we just created. In this mode, we can interact with our 3D application. The buttons obviously won't work as we haven't supplied a scenario for them yet. Anyway, everything looks good, except maybe there is an obstacle for the mouse in these areas. This is because here we have an invisible Div block that overlaps the canvas. To fix this, we can set the width for our auxiliary Div blocks to 0. So let's do it for both panels, as well as for both centering divs. In the case of the right panel, however, we have a small problem, since the buttons are snapped to the left of the parent div. This can be fixed by providing some spacing for the centering div. Let's make it 60 pixels. Let's also set width to 0 for the remaining div. If we check it out in the preview mode, we can see that nothing prevents the mouse from clicking in these areas. Okay, Now let's shift both panels a bit away from the edges of the screen. Let's shift them both by 10 pixels. Much nicer now. So we are almost ready for exporting this layout and integrating with the Verge3D application. The only thing left is to assign unique IDs to the buttons so that we could use these buttons in the puzzles. The IDs of the buttons will be basically the same as the names of their respective styles. We, however, will be following a naming convention, using underscores instead of hyphens for IDs. So let's add the IDs in the Properties tab. The first button's ID will be unfold_button. The second will be fold button. Then goes annotation button. Now follows the right panel, wood button, plastic button, and finally carbon button. That's it. Now, before moving this UI layout to Verge3D App Manager, we should edit the embed element. Remember that we used a temporary link to the application that we uploaded to Verge3D network. Such a setup won't work with the puzzles due to the so-called cross-origin policy. Basically, both the 3D application and the UI files must be loaded from the same domain. To fix this, simply remove everything before the HTML file. So the embed component now refers to a local file rather than some web link. We can double check this by comparing it with the name of the HTML file in the App Manager. Click Save and Close. Webflow now displays a 404 error since it cannot find this file locally. But it will be okay after we transfer this layout to the application folder. So let's do it. Click the button Export Code on the top bar. Webflow is now preparing all the files. Then we can click this button to create a zip archive. And finally, download this zip. Now let's unzip all the files to the application folder. We can use copy, then locate the app folder and perform paste straight to the root of this folder. Now let's refresh the App Manager page. As you can see, there are now two blue icons, meaning that our app now consists of two HTML files. Moreover, the main HTML file of the application is now index.html, which we just exported from Webflow. So let's run the application using index.html. Now we have both UI and the 3D content in the same app. A scroll bar appeared on the right. We should definitely fix this small issue. Another thing is that the user has no clue that the buttons are clickable, as they don't respond to the mouse cursor anyhow. Lastly, it would be great to have a unique favicon for our application, which would be displayed in the Browser tab. Let's get back to Webflow and fix these issues. We won't be changing the link in the embed element, since it is not really necessary to have a 3D view at this stage. It was important to see where the 3D content is positioned when we were creating the UI. But now we just want to edit our project a bit. First of all, In the style of the embed element, let's switch overflow to hidden. This will remove the scroll bar from our app. Then select one of the buttons and again switch to editing its shared style. At the very bottom, we can change its cursor property to pointer. It didn't change in the editor, but we can check it out in the preview mode. When the mouse cursor is hovered over any of the buttons, it turns its icon to hand instead of arrow. This will serve as a hint for the user that the buttons are clickable. Finally, let's add a favicon. Click on the top left corner and select Project Settings. Now we can upload favicons that are basically small images. These icons are provided with the starter files. Now we can simply get back to the Webflow editor. And export the code again. As we did before, copy the files from the zip and paste them to the application folder, replacing the old files. If we refresh the application now, we can see that there is no scroll bar on the right anymore. The cursor changes when hovered over the buttons, hinting that they are clickable. And we also have a nice icon for our application. There is just one minor issue left. Namely, the buttons are visible before the application is loaded, which looks not that nice. A possible way to deal with it is to create a preloaded screen in Webflow that would cover the buttons. However, we'll fix this issue another way. Let's just hide the buttons in Webflow and reveal them with the puzzles after the app is loaded. Let's get back to Webflow, select the right panel div, and hide it. In order to be able to reveal this panel with the puzzles later, let's assign a unique ID to this div. Let's type the ID right_panel. The same procedure should be performed for the left panel. Also type this ID, left panel, and set its display property to none. Now we can export the code. Once again, we should replace the files in the app folder. If we refresh the application, we'll see that the buttons are no longer visible. To reveal them, let's go to the puzzles. We'll be adding new puzzles right to the current workspace. Since the puzzles here are interpreted immediately after the application is loaded. Go to the HTML category and drag out the puzzle called Set Style. We'll be modifying the property called Display. Let's add a text puzzle and specify a new value for the display property, block. This is the default value for a div element, meaning that it is visible on the page. Let's duplicate the text puzzle and type the ID for the element which we want to reveal, left panel. We specified this ID in Webflow just a minute ago. We should also check in parent doc. This instructs this puzzle to search for the element in the outer HTML file, which we exported from Webflow, rather than in the 3D application HTML file. Let's save the puzzles, switch to the application tab and refresh the page. As you can see, the buttons on the left are now visible again. Let's duplicate this puzzle and do the same for the right panel. Save and refresh. Now both panels are revealed after the application is loaded. So this is it with creating HTML UI. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.